Hi, Andrew. Very welcome back to the Leitrim GAA podcast here on finalwhistle.ie with me, Breifne early. This week, I am joined by Aidan Rooney, who joins us once again. Aidan, you're very welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Breifne. Great to be back again. Thank you.
Well, it is great to be back, and it's great for the show to be back because we have to be honest, you might have missed us. I know a few people have been in touch wondering why there wasn't a show over the last 2 weeks. Well, to be honest, we've been kind of busy here at Leitrim Daily and finalwhistle.ie Towers, and we've been busy with this, which is a full compendium of everything that's going on in the world of Leitrim Gaelic games at club level in the county. It's on sale now on our website, finalwhistle.ie, and in most good shops around the county. You can find a full list of where you can pick that up. It's got every player involved in this year's championship. Thank you so much to everyone who helped us put it together, to Philip Rooney, our editor, and to our team of Daniel and Con and David Regan, a player with Leitrim Gaels, who took all the drone photography that's in it as well. Some really, really great articles, profiles, all that sort of stuff. Have you got your copy yet, Aidan?
I saw it in Manor Hamilton last night, Breifne. I have to go back for it now during the week.
You didn't have €15 on you at the time. I like it. Listen, just want to get that plug in and out of the way. Now, before we get too tied down in this week's action, as I said, we have been off air. We did record a show 10 days ago with Colin Regan. We didn't get it out in time, so it has come out just earlier today. So there's two shows today. One of them is a little bit dated, but to be fair to Colin and to be fair to the people that featured in the show, we did want to get it out there and into the world so people could watch it. It's a little bit before the last two rounds of games, so a little bit out of date, but nonetheless, still worth watching if you're into what's going on in the county in terms of Gaelic football. Now, what's going on at the moment? We've 3 rounds done in the Connacht Gold Senior Football Championship, 2 in each of the intermediate, the Smith Mine Metals Intermediate Championship, and the Junior Championship in the county as well. Of course, the Corrib Oil Junior Championship. It seems like there's football just coming out of all of the orifices around the county. Everywhere you look, there's a match being played. We, of course, have full live radio commentary, online radio of every single senior and intermediate game. We did try the junior game, not much of an uptake, so really couldn't justify it. So we'll be proceeding with the senior and intermediate games through the rest of the summer. We'll also be adding the ladies' games, more on that later. They start their season, the club season at least, in this weekend with the first round of the All Championship. The Senior Championship kicks off this weekend, so we'll be covering that on the show over the next couple of weeks as well. Now, Aidan, I know you were in Manor Hamilton last night, so maybe let's start there in terms of the games over the weekend. We're going to run the scores of all the games over the weekend across the bottom so people can catch up with them. I'm sure you already know, but you were in Bugon last night for the visit of Gortletra. Kind of went to plan for Manor. You must be happy up there as a former player with the club.
Yeah, Manor Hamilton, I suppose, have been kind of, stuttering a little bit. You know, the season didn't start great for them, and I know Sean had a lot of injuries and stuff in that. But to be fair to them, last night, they've kicked on from their Melvin Gaels victory. You know, the week before. They were the better team, and they probably deserved the win. Gortletra were, I suppose, more than talking about Allen Gaels. Gortletra are going to be hanging on in that group a little bit, and are going to struggle to get their win. That's going to put them into contention for quarterfinals. But to be fair, Manor Hamilton got the game under control relatively early on. Now, Gortletra did battle back in the game. They had several goal chances before half time. They had a penalty miss, and they had another goal chance of a crossbar that, the game could have gone in at half time with Gortletra ahead. But as it happened, Manor Hamilton went in probably comfortable enough ahead, but on the balance of play, deserved it. Gortletra came out in the second half, and I think Manor Hamilton's greater quality up front told as the game wore on. They were able to get the scores. They have a couple of young players coming through. Younger Martin and O'Connell came on last night, and they were excellent for Manor Hamilton. So they're starting to unearth a couple of good young players, and then the old stalwarts are still there. I suppose this time of the year, championship time of the year, you're always going to be able to pull out. And to be fair to the lads, not to mention any names, obviously Darren Sweeney was introduced last night in his first game for the club this season. Really, Brian McDonald, Thomas McDonald, Anthony McDonald, these players are still, Trojan workers for the club. Paddy Maguire, So Manor Hamilton had a shape about them last night that they looked like they could be back in contention. Albeit, Gortletcher struggled a little bit, but and we're in the game for a long period. But Manor Hamilton did have a look about them that they were starting to throw shapes, particularly in the forward area. Defensively, I suppose still there's a lot of work to be done for Sean Boylan and his crew to get their defensive unit tight enough to withstand a superior challenge from a Mohill or a Ballinaglera or a Carrick down the road in the championship game. But for the time being, Manor Hamilton have qualified, I suppose, last night. They won their second game, so they're through to the quarterfinals of the championship, which means that now they can look at their last two games and they can try and try and build on that. Well, the Leitrim Gaels game was their last game, but try and build on that into the quarterfinal. Leitrim Gaels game will be a good test for them. It'll tell them where they're at. I suppose overall they had a very comprehensive win against Melvin Gaels at the weekend. So Melvin Gaels are, I suppose, struggling a little bit from that point of view. But Manor Hamilton, they looked decent last night on home soil.
Yeah, I was in Leitrim Gaels, as you mentioned. We were covering it live on the platform here on finalwhistle.ie. And Leitrim Gaels, Melvin Gaels, I expected a bit more of a fight from Melvin Gaels, but as we'll hear, we're going to speak to Martin McGowan of Allen Gaels, who was also commentating on that particular fixture last night. We're going to speak to him later in the show. But Melvin Gaels were depleted. They were missing Killy McGlone in midfield. Obviously, Emlyn, we've spoken about in the show before. He's playing with you in St. Mary's now. A loss, no doubt, to any team at this level. Even at his age, he's still a huge impact at any level in senior club football. But David McSharry was taken off after the first water break, and his experience gone from the team as well. And Darragh Rooney, he just had too much to do and couldn't really get into the game. Caught a couple of really nice balls from kickouts, and it worked really well until eventually, I suppose, a double team of David Brune and Colin Morton just put paid to that, and the two lads just kind of dominated that tussle. They moved Darragh into full forward. It didn't really work. They couldn't get the ball into him. Anytime they did, he looked dangerous, but just there was nothing really on there for Melvin Gaels. I thought maybe a little bit of naivety, maybe from the bench in terms of the decision to put Darragh in full forward. He'd done a lot of work. Maybe the legs weren't quite there. Because he was literally carrying most of the show for most of the game up to the first maybe 40 minutes of the match, and then towards the end it just went away from Melvin Gaels. There was no score though. I think there was a point in the last minute of the game, but before that there'd been maybe 20 minutes with no score from either game, and I felt it lacked an intensity. It lacked just that kind of competitiveness. Kind of died away a little bit, and I'd be worried for Melvin Gaels. They're lucky they got that result in Gortletcher in the opening day, because I think they would probably struggle at this level to stay up had they not already secured that spot. I can't see them getting past the quarterfinal, to be honest. They're likely to face a Mohill or a Fianna or a Ballinaglera, most likely Mohill if they finish fourth in that group, which is probably the way you would expect if everything goes to form and there's no major surprises. You would expect that to go that way in the coming weeks. And I think Leitrim Gaels impressed in stages. I think they lacked a little bit of intensity, as I mentioned, going into the last 15 minutes of the game. And I felt some of the tactics, again, not to criticise the coaches from both sides, but I thought there was two 40, 45-metre frees late in the second half, and they brought the goalkeeper up. Brendan Flynn came up to take them. He did nail one against Carrick last weekend. He nailed one early on against Melvin Gaels, but I kind of felt it wasn't about whether he scored or not. It was about killing 45 or 60 seconds every time he came up to take that kick. And I just felt that Leitrim Gaels closed the game out. Now, they did it professionally, but I'd like to have seen a bit more ambition from them in terms of maybe going on and adding to the score sheet. They didn't score for 20 minutes in that second half, despite their dominance of the game. The final thing I'll say is, and it's back to Brendan Flynn again, I thought he was excellent. He saved 2 penalties now, 2 weeks on the trot. He rescued a point for Leitrim Gaels with a double save against Carrick 2 weeks ago. And then against Darragh Rooney, he pushed a penalty onto the post and to safety early on in the game that really kind of changed the complexion of the game on Saturday. And I suppose sometimes it's hard to see the impact a goalkeeper makes, but I just think he deserves a special mention. Himself and David Brune, for me, Colin Morton, thereabouts as well, but just outstanding performers on the day. But you'd expect that.
Well, the one point I'd make on it, Breifne, and just to be wary of it, like I've seen it here in the championship here in Sligo today as well. Now, the championship in Sligo structure is different. Only 2 teams of the 5 go through to the semi-finals, which makes it really competitive. Like, every game has a meaning. There's absolutely no game you can afford to sit back and lose. Whereas the quarter-final system with the 5-team groups, to be fair, it's a little bit flat, because positioning in the group isn't really that critical. There will be a school of thought out there that the like of Mohill finally you probably have a better chance. But you're talking there as a Leitrim Gaels man, and you're very confident. And I would say last night, Gordletra, in all fairness to them, they played without Jack Heslin. They were very, very competitive for long periods. Now the question is, in this championship, at the other side of the draw, Allen Gaels are looking like the team that might struggle in the group. Are Gordletra going to target an Allen Gaels playoff game as their championship survival ticket, or could they spring Jack Heslin next game against Leitrim Gaels and catch Leitrim Gaels unaware and get the result, get their win that way, and then that would bring Melvin Gaels back into the mix? The point here is that Melvin Gaels are struggling to get a victory now on the board since the Gordletra game, and if they don't, then the victory for Gordletra against a Leitrim Gaels or a Carrick in the last game would open up that door to save themselves before any relegation match. So there's a few caveats going on there.
In principle, just to clarify that situation, Melvin Gaels have the head-to-head over Gordletra. So Gordletra would need to get 3 points, because St Mary's and Leitrim Gaels already have 3 points with their draw.
Yes.
So Gordletra would need 3 points in those 2 games, and I just can't see them gathering anything from the Carrick game. Jack Heslin. So, and I know I'm from Leitrim Village, but I can't see them getting anything from Leitrim Gaels game either. I think they're going to be bottom, and I think we've already recorded the interview with Martin McGowan, so I know we won't be asking him specifically. We touch on it, but we don't ask him specifically. But I think if he spoke to him privately, he'd probably admit to you that realistically, both themselves and Gordletra know where they're going to finish the season, and they're probably going to be in bottom spot. Hopefully I'm correct. I stand to be corrected by either side, and I wish you the best of luck. I genuinely do. I'd love to see either one of you, because I have a bit of a grow for both teams. I'd love to see you do well, but I think the way the results have gone so far, with only a game or 2 left for both sides, I do think they'll struggle to stay out of that bottom spot, and it's going to come down to that decision. I think Allen Gaels would probably miss out, if I'm based on what I've seen so far this year. I think Allen Gaels could be in line for a very, very tough couple of games. Again, I've loads of friends in Drumshanbo. I'm going to get absolutely hammered for that. But again, please prove me wrong. I'd love to see you prove me wrong, but I do think Allen Gaels are going to struggle to stay up this season. The final game in the other half of the draw, at least, Mohill and Fianna on Friday night. I was at this game. Did you catch any of it at all over the weekend, or were you?
No, I didn't. I was watching. I was trying. We were on game on Friday night as well, but I was following on Twitter. The signs of Fianna. Yeah, if I was from Fianna, I'd be saying, yeah, it's okay. We've lost this little battle, but the war is still there to be won. Mohill have been very convincing to date. I suppose we're all kind of saying Mohill are well ahead of the chase and stuff like that. But what the other contenders here are just trying to do is they're trying to quantify, well, how close can we get? And when the big day comes, are we capable of doing anything to take them out? And, that's the question that we're looking for. Like, okay, Mohill 121 is a massive score. 8-point defeat is not the worst thing in the world for Fianna at this stage of the season to Mohill. Like, Mohill are the team who are in the ascendancy. From Fianna's point of view, could they contend with Mohill? And I suppose from their point of view, seeing them earlier in the championship rather than later is pretty better in the knockout stages, because the further Mohill go, the more difficult it's going to be to take them out. And look, for Fianna's point of view, like, we can't use bad language on the podcast, but they're going to have to get off the pot at some stage. And I think, that this year is a good test for them. They're showing good colours, but they're going to have to win one of these big games and put themselves in that position to take on a Mohill or get to the semi-finals or final of a county championship, to really, really show their true mettle. So, yeah, like, Mohill are currently ranked favourites for the county championship. So it's up to everybody else to see who can dislodge them and can they find weaknesses in the Mohill setup. Difficult to see where they are.
Absolutely. It was at the game on Friday night. I thought Fianna missed Mark Keegan majorly in the heart of the defence and the shuffle around. Conor Dwyer went to centre back. Did all right, but just then left holes elsewhere. And I'd worry for the size of Fianna's squad in terms of the players that are actually going to make an impact. And I think that's where Mull have the advantage. Level at half-time, courtesy of a last-minute goal for Mull. Fianna were 3 points up going into injury time in the first half, maybe even 4 points up. And not probably, shaded the entire first half. They were the better side. First half, wasteful, missed a lot of chances. And that's probably what ended it in the end. I think the heads dropped a little bit for that goal just before the break. And when they came out for a second half, Mull just, whatever was said to them at halftime, just that the right ingredients were put into that mix by Liam Keenan or whoever was speaking to them at the break. And they came out and they were ruthless in the second half. And
that's what's happening, I think. That's happening in most championship games that I've been involved with this season, or have watched. The third quarter is the moving quarter. We're seeing it at all levels. It's happening at intercounty level as well. That the team that can exercise authority in that third quarter are generally running out winners. The team that can come out after half time and put the pressure on in that third quarter are generally running out with games. That third quarter is becoming a crucial quarter to get for getting it clear. No game is lost in the first half generally, but after halftime, that period seems to be the one that's actually defining a lot of the games I'm seeing.
Yeah, the final game of the weekend at senior level, of course, was in Aughnasheelin, and the hosts, they entertained their near neighbours, Ballinaglera and Aughnasheelin. It's 2-13 to 9 points, the final score, 10-point winning margin for Ballinaglera. Of course, finalists back in 2019. They'll be looking to get back to that level again. They've struggled. They're beaten in their first two games by Fianna and Mull, respectively. They'll be glad to get a win under their belt, and obviously they face into a final game as well that you would be expecting them to pick up points from this weekend against Allen Gaels. So they look like they're going to seal probably third place in that group the way things are panning out, and they'll be looking forward to maybe a semi-final against potentially Leitrim Gaels or Manor Hamilton or Carrick maybe.
Yeah, well, I think from Ballinamore's point of view, like, they're under pressure. Like, Dominic's under pressure. Like, Dominic Corrigan's in his third season in Ballinamore. There's massive expectation around Ballinamore since he arrived. They've fallen, I suppose, against Manor Hamilton. They'll say very unfortunately in the county final a couple of years ago. But they're starting. This is their year now. They need to be, in contention to win this year. Or you'd imagine that Dominic will probably be moving on from Ballinamore. So it'll be a failed campaign from Dominic's point of view if he can't steer them. But 2 losses in the first couple of games. I suppose the Fianna game caught them cold. They'll say that was a kind of a blow against the head. The Ballinamore or the Mull game probably very close. But Ballinamore are thereabouts. The question would be their forward line always. The last couple of seasons, do they have the forwards to win a county championship? That's ultimately where I think their Achilles heel has been the last couple of seasons. So have they improved that area of the pitch? To score that amount in Aughnasheelin is not a bad return. So if Ballinamore could fix that end of the field, I'd say absolutely they're championship contenders, because that's been their poorest point in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, let's take a little look at the Intermediate Championship over the last 2 weeks. We haven't obviously had a show last week, so we haven't really focused on the Intermediate Championship at all yet. First round games, Ballinaglera 11 points, Anaduff 3-12, St. Pat's Dromahare 14 points, Aughnasheelin 9 points, Ballinaglera 1-9, Aughavas 2-9, Drumkieran 1-11, Drumreilly 1-12, and then round 2 played over the last weekend. Aughavas 1-13, Carrigallen 8 points. Good result there for the local derby for Aughavas. Recently promoted, of course, to this grade from the Junior Championship. They've hit the ground running with 2 wins. Aughnasheelin and Ballinaglera, a 1-point victory for Ballinaglera there in Aughnasheelin on Saturday evening. Kilturbert and Anaduff was a draw in Anaduff, 2-8 to 1-11. Anaduff, of course, with the 2 goals in that encounter. Drumreilly 4-10. Ballinaglera 9 points. Ballinaglera struggling at this moment in that grade. They were beaten by Aughavas the previous week. So I suppose it's been a good return for Vinton McBrien and his team over there in Aughavas. It's nice for them to be back at intermediate level and to be top of the table. 2 wins from 2.
Well, again, you're talking about pedigree. Aughnasheelin are one of these teams that have probably slipped back. Obviously not a massive catchment area, but massive pedigree. So they're probably getting back up. And to be fair to Finton, nobody would know the game better. We talked about this when they were in the junior final. About the bounce coming out of the junior setup, and to be fair to Aughnasheelin, they've shown the bounce. They've bounced on, and they've really shown they're more than capable in this intermediate championship, as we expected they would. I suppose the contrary was, looking at Gortestra in the senior, haven't done the same thing. They haven't got the bounce, but maybe there's a bigger gap between intermediate and senior than there is between junior and intermediate. Maybe that's the story of this. But like Finton McBride, better guy to have Aughnasheelin up and running. So look, they're coming in there as a dark horse for the championship. Ballinaglera are really struggling in that side of the draw. The other side is a lot more balanced. Seems to be at the moment. So yeah, Aughnasheelin and Dromiley are going well there. Too, it's hard to write off those type of what I would call traditional teams. They're coming at the right time, and Dromiley a big score 4-10. Those teams are starting to show a clean pair of heels. Aughnasheelin and Ballinaglera that are always going to be very competitive. And Kiltubber, it's a really tight group. You see games at a point, winning games by a point, it tells you how competitive that side of the group is. There's no clean pair of heels being shown really.
Absolutely. Some nice tight encounters down on that side of the draw. In terms of the junior championship, we take a quick look at it. We also have 2 rounds of games played 2 weekends ago. Ballinamore Aughnasheelin versus Aughnasheelin. Second teams both 3-19 to 4 points. A heavy victory there for Ballinamore. Aughnasheelin won't want to be reminded about that against their neighbours. Estlin 115 to 112. A good result there for Estlin. A nice spread of scorers. We've heard a lot about Conor Byrne. He gets a lot of the credit down there in Estlin. Very impressive on the day, but had about 7 or 8 lads around him that all chipped in with some pretty impressive scoring performances as well that afternoon. St. Mary's went and plundered your own neck of the woods in Glencar Manor, 1-8 to 5-12, the final score for the visitors down there, while Mull and Clune played out a nice, should I say, if there is such a thing, local derby, 110 apiece in Philly McGuinness Park. That obviously was 10 days ago now. Played last Sunday week. Yeah, it played yesterday. Carrigallen versus Ballinamore Aughnasheelin. A big win there again for Ballinamore's second side. 213 to 10 points, 9-point victory for Ballinamore in Carrigallen, while Glencar and Kilty got their season up and running, 115 to 3 points away in Aughnasheelin. Clune, a big win in Manor, 321, should I say, 8 points to Manor, 22 points the difference there. And St. Mary's Kiltard, 15 points, and a Duff second side, 3. So a good few second teams in that grade. Only, of course, the 3 first teams, all with wins. Estlin not playing this weekend, but they did win on the opening weekend. Clune, a draw in Mull, and a win in Manor, while Glencar and Kilty, they got their season up and running with a decent victory away to Aughnasheelin. And I suppose junior football, we did live commentaries of the junior games last week. To be honest, we've discovered that anyone who wants to know what's going on in the junior football world in this county goes to the junior football world in this county. The numbers were just not. We couldn't justify doing the commentaries again. We didn't have any interest in terms of people watching and listening. So, we just stuck to the senior intermediate. But the junior games, nonetheless, attracted big numbers in terms of fans. And for those teams that are down there, as we saw from Aughnasheelin last year, there's a big interest locally in those games, Aidan.
Well, I would look at junior football, and again, involving St. Mary's here, we had a draw in the junior championship today in St. Mary's. Our second team, I always feel the junior teams, the second teams of clubs, gives you a very strong indication of where the clubs currently are. The fact that Ballinamore and Mohill are doing really well, with their second, teams. Manor Hamilton is struggling a little bit. It kind of gives a picture of where the clubs are as regards, their resources and the number of players and all that kind of stuff and the quality, what's available. Like Mohill, obviously, are the club that are, they have massive numbers and quality. So the bigger clubs, that's a good indication for me, along with the 3 teams that have the first, it's their only team, Estlin, Glenfarne and Clune, who you'd expect to be the 3 strongest junior clubs, or there should be. given that they're first teams. But the other one is always the one I'm interested in watching in junior football, to see what the second strings are like, because it generally gives you a picture of where the overall clubs are as a whole. Like if a team is struggling in junior football, it means that their senior team ultimately could struggle in the foreseeable future. And that's why always look at junior football. So I suppose from Manorhamilton's point of view, my own club, that's the kind of a warning sign for Manorhamilton that they need to have a quick look at that and see, have they enough resources coming through and young players, to facilitate the senior team remaining competitive. That's something I would see. But to be fair to the second teams and third team or second teams in those groups, they're very, very strong. And I suppose Manor is a standout one that's not very strong.
Yeah, of course. Normally we do have some post-match reaction videos as part of the show. We do have two from the intermediate grade this week, and that, of course, was the clash between Aughnasheelin and Ballinaglera. So let's hear what the Ballinaglera manager, JP Kane, and selector with Aughnasheelin, and of course one of your former teammates, Martin McHugh, had to say about their 1 point difference at the end of the game. Ballinaglera, of course, winning that game in Aughnasheelin. Here's what the two lads had to say to Seamus Gallagher.
I have with me here JP Kane, manager of the Ballinaglera team. First of all, JP, well done. An arrow win there, but first win in the championship, you must be delighted. Your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I think for long spells of the game, probably in the first half, I think we went 4 or 5 scores to no score up, and again we were dominating, like we were pushing up on their kickouts, we were overturning ball, and when they got into the forward line, we were back in groups, we overturned the ball and we got scores from it. And when you overturn ball, when they have down their forward line overturn ball and you get a score and you're in, it's a sucker punch to the other team, and I think we've done that on numerous occasions. But yeah, look, we were probably at the very end there, we were lucky to hold on, but I think we probably they got a goal at the very end and a couple of handy frees, like I thought myself. But look, we suppose we done enough, I think, to deserve to win the game.
Yeah, so you were 3 up at the break and 4 up near the end there, and with a man extra. I suppose you were just beginning to wonder how Aughnasheelin got the goal and a point. 11 matters, but fair play to Aaron McCauley was your hero in the end. But
yeah, well, look at. I remember Aaron just at half time, he came over to me and he says, JP, he says, I'm playing terrible, you might have to take me off. And I says, look at Aaron, I suppose these 15 lads that was started and we have a very small panel of players, we only have 6 subs, and I have belief in an awful lot of them, and I says to Aaron, look at, I says, I believe in you, I think you'll turn the game, and as true as God he did, he scored 1-1 in the end in the second half, so he did turn the game.
Yeah, 1-1, and it was a low enough scoring game, so
yeah.
1-1 was a great return. Next week, big game again. Home to Drumahare.
Yeah, I suppose if you had to say at the start of the year before I went to Ballinaglera, your first game in the championship would be Annaduff, your second game Aughnasheelin, then Drumahare, you'd say to yourself, Jesus, you couldn't get a worse start.
Yeah,
but
picking these games.
Yeah. But no, Drumahare, look, we're in a good spot now, so we are. Like, I suppose if we had to lose today, the pressure was on us. But look, I'd be going down to. I said, I believe in these players. I'm going down next Friday night in Ballinaglera, and I think we'll if we played it the way we did there, I think we'll be very close again. I suppose the last 2 times before I came to Ballinaglera, they lost in the championship by 20 points and the league by 18, but we got a draw in the league earlier in the year. So look, I think momentum might have swung a bit to us, but it's going to be a dogfight. We know that, and look, if we're still in as I said to the lads, every water break, if you're still in the game, and if we're still in the game at the last water break, I think we'll pull on, because I think we're fit enough to do that.
And so an interesting couple of weeks ahead for you. So we wish you the best of luck next week and in the rest of the championship.
Thanks a million, Seamus.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Seamus. Thank you.
JP. Okay, I'm joined here by Martin McHugh, Martin, former Leitrim goalkeeper, still on the panel here with Aughnasheelin and a selector on the Aughnasheelin team. Martin, you're very welcome, but I have to say tough luck. Close call in the end.
Yeah, we made hard work of it. Like, we didn't really fire on all cylinders today, and there's some lads missing as well. But we finished up by just losing by a point, and we got a goal near the end of the game. But I think Ballinaglera at the end of the day just wanted more, and that's why they came out on top with a 1 point win.
Yeah, I know you mentioned it there. You were missing one of the Cullens there, and Sean McQueen, I think.
Yeah, Sean's out with an injury, and one of the Cullens out with a hamstring problem. Ben McGowan off there, but near 10 minutes ago in the game with a hamstring problem, So we still have a panel, but when you're missing 3 or 4 your top players now, you're struggling to try and get your best team out there and try and get results. But all is not gone yet.
No, well, yeah, you have a big one next week against Kiltubber, but at half time, I think you were 5-2 down. You were 4 points down with not that long to go, and we said it on commentary, Aughnasheelin need a goal to get back in this game. So you got the goal and the point to level it, it must have been really disappointing to lose it nearly at the last very end.
You hate it when you work really hard and you come back with a goal and a point and you level and your tails are up and all that. But then we start doing stupid things again. We give away some just stupid passes that allowed Ballinaglera to get their hands on the ball again and get their winning point. So it's a learning curve for a lot of these players. We have a lot of older players, but it's still we've a good few young players that are still learning the game. It's all well and good playing football like that at underage, at under 18s and all that, but when you come up with the big boys, mistakes will crucify you. And really that's what happened today. We just gave away a lot of silly ball, and Ballinaglera capitalised on it and got the scores when it counted.
So you have 2 games played, no points yet, under a little bit of pressure now to get something. So next week, I suppose it doesn't get any easier. Another local derby, away to Kiltubber. So will you have any of the players back, do you think, for that? Or
I don't know, Seamus, to be honest. Ben, no. Sean McQueen is a back problem. Salmon, no, he torn hamstring as well. I'm on the sideline because I'm trying to squeeze out the gate because Kevin wants to play in goal, so he's there for that. And look, we still have a team to put together for next weekend. That's not the issue. It's really to try and get points on the board, because you can't really wait for the last game to try and get something so hope next Friday is going to be like a winner takes all, to be honest.
So yeah, you're a long time playing football now, club and county, but still enjoying it?
I absolutely enjoyed it is no better place to be. I still get the buzz when I get my gear ready for a match or training. I don't mind being on the sideline because, like I said, this time now is the right time to train Kevin in the goals, and if he does have a bad game, I'm there to run on and do my bit. But it's my drug, it's my oxygen that I love the game, and I love being on the field, roaring and shouting like an idiot. But at the end of the day, win, lose, or draw, it's just that feeling you get when you're out there with teammates and all that.
Well, look, enjoy it for as long and more as you can, and the best of luck in the rest of the championship, and thanks for having the word with us.
No problem, Seamus. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Martin McGowan, Allen Gaels manager, but not this weekend. No game for you this weekend. You were on media duty with Ocean FM at the Leitrim Gaels game. I suppose we might as well start with you. Be back in senior management. How has that been, your return to the dugout?
Well, I suppose it's been very different, Breifne, from the last time I was involved. I suppose a couple of years ago, I got involved with Estlin. My good friend Joe Reynolds, asked me to come and get involved with Estlin. And, Estlin are the smallest parish in Leitrim, and they're operating off a very limited number of players and that. And the minute I went into Estlin, there was a real family feel to the whole atmosphere there. And, it was great, and I loved every minute of it. I spent 2 years there, and I can't say that I regretted a single moment there. And I suppose last December, I took a break from it then, but last December I got a call from Alan Wynne on behalf of the Allen Gaels players to ask me would I consider coming into Drumshanbo. And I suppose, there'll be a couple of jobs that'll be very dear to my heart, and one of them obviously would be my own club, Allen Gaels. I suppose I devoted a large amount of my time when I was young playing with Allen Gaels, and through my 20s and that, and I suppose I picked up serious injuries playing with the club that ultimately finished my career a little bit earlier than I would have liked, and that but I still wouldn't trade any of that for what I'd done in the past as a player and that. So when I was asked to come and get involved with Allen Gaels, it really was a no-brainer for me in that. And it's a very unusual time to be going into management, because there's a very unreal feel about the whole thing, Breifne, I suppose, with the COVID. At the very start there, you were only limiting players to individual sessions. You were handing them out running programs and getting them to go and do that sort of thing yourself, So for the first 3 or 4 months of the year, you really are dependent on what the players are going to put into it. And you've no real control other than the information and the sessions that you're giving out to them. So that was very much different to what I would have experienced in the past. And then come the changeover when we were allowed to have the sessions again, I suppose we started getting back to some sort of normality. and that, but I suppose in a way we were hit with an absolutely massive wave of injuries. I think I intimated this to you before. We nominated a first 13 for the league, which would be considered probably our 13 best players, followed by another 11 for the second team. And we felt that we had enough players to put out a third team, and we did put out a third team in the league. And what I found was that with actually impact injuries, like, I hear a lot of teams complain about getting hamstring injuries and stuff like that, Breifne, and we've been very lucky in that regard. Like since the year started, we've only had one hamstring injury really, but all our injuries have been coming from impacts. Like we have 4 broken bones at the moment, 4 broken arms, I should say, at the moment in Allen Gaels. Guys that broke an arm or broke a bone in their hand, whatever it was, through an impact injury in a game or in a training situation. We have a broken nose, and we actually had another player only this week that had to be taken to hospital by ambulance over an injury he received in the game against Aughnasheelin. So, I mean, that in itself has been very difficult for us, but we've been operating with a much smaller panel than we would have envisaged at the start of the year.
Yeah, it's been a tough year for you as well, though, in terms of how the championship has gone. Mohun have been flying this year, and you met them in the first game. I know we spoke to you immediately after the game, or Declan Moran did, but how has it been since then? Because obviously Aughnasheelin last week, good first half, faded away in the second, at least on the scoreboard. What has the reality of that return to action been like for the club?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I suppose, from an outsider looking in, you look at the scoreline and it doesn't look great, but it doesn't tell the whole tale, really, Breifne. I mean, we had a man sent off in the first half on a black card for 10 minutes. And in that 10-minute period, Aughnasheelin tagged on 3 points to no score for us. And we had a man sent off then on a red card after 12 minutes of the second half. And in the 18 minutes that remained, Aughnasheelin tagged on another 8 points without reply from us. So when you take those 11 points out when we were down to 14 men, really and truly, the scoreline all of a sudden looks completely different. Like the game was very even between the two teams up until the sending off. Now, I mean, at the end of the day, Aughnasheelin utilised the extra man very well. We found it difficult to cope with being down to the 14 men and that. And ultimately, it has put us in a situation now where we are looking at these last 2 games where we probably need to win both games in order to make the quarterfinals. And ultimately, Breifne, that's going to be our target over the next couple of weeks. The morale within the players, I have to say, has been quite good. There's been a good attitude. They've knuckled down and they've worked hard in the last couple of weeks since the Mohill game, really and truly. They've put their shoulder to the wheel. But as you well know, we still haven't got all our players back. And we're just, at the moment now, we're trying to integrate the few guys that we have back in. Caleb Duffy came back to the country there last Friday. Actually, I beg your pardon, the day before the Aughnasheelin game. So we have him back in just over a week now and that. So we're trying to integrate him back into it. Martin Byrne has just returned there on last Thursday night. So again, these are 2 big players for us, or there will be 2 big players for us. But, it's a big task to integrate those guys at such short notice into the squad now, Breifne.
I suppose, Martin, the only question I put to you, when we spoke about this, I suppose, at length over the last couple of years about, Allen Gaels' proud tradition and all the history in the club, and, I suppose in our time of playing, Martin, and, your club's prominence, and I suppose knowing how dear the club is to you, I suppose your job here, I suppose, is it's not a one-off hit. You're going to have a full album out of this by the time you're finished, because you're going to have to stick with this plan, to bring Allen Gaels back. And I suppose the championship, I suppose, takes on a different light in that context. Is you to keep Allen Gaels as senior football for next year, and you want to try and build and build and build. And the reality, I suppose, is the challenges ahead of you. The next 2 games, Ballinaglera and Breifne, are 2 their growth path as teams, than you are at the moment. So I suppose the job really is, I suppose, from externally looking at it, you're always the optimist, like your good father was before you, but the glass always been 3/4 full. I suppose from my perspective, I'm asking you, I suppose, staying in senior football is probably the main target at this stage, to make sure that Allen Gaels are, if you're in a quarter-final of a championship, you're in senior football for next year, and that's the bottom line. So I suppose, Is that the primary target? Like,
it absolutely is the primary target. Of course it is, Aidan. You know, I mean, there is a school of thought, I suppose, around Drumshanbo, and I've heard it creeping in for a while now, that maybe we might be better off going down to intermediate and rebuilding and coming back up. And, you know, it's not a school of thought I agree with, Aidan. You know, it's like what we discussed earlier on off camera about the 2-tier system, you know, and that, you know, I mean, your ambitions, if you are going to improve as a team, you have to be playing against better teams, and you have to be playing a better standard of football. And ultimately, you know, that's what we want in Allen Gaels. Now, it's not an easy task because everybody wants the same thing. And I suppose you have a couple of very big clubs there, as you mentioned, like Breifne, I mean, are one of the big up-and-coming clubs, you know, and, you know, I suppose from an outsider looking in, you would be saying to yourself, you know, there has to be a senior championship within this Breifne squad with all they've done at underage, you know, and you're waiting for that to happen for them. Now, if Breifne are going to wait for it to happen, it won't happen for them. They have to make it happen themselves, you know. And I would say the same absolutely has to apply to Allen Gaels. Like, we've had a small bit of success at underage. We had a minor championship last year, which was great. We had a minor B championship the year before. We've been going quite well at under 13 and under 15 level at the moment within the county, and that our teams are performing very well. We've got a lot of things right at underage. We've huge numbers coming out, you know, on Saturday mornings with the club at underage. So for me, I think there's a responsibility on me as the manager, and also on the players that represent the club at senior level, to keep that flame going for all those younger players, that when they come through, you know, that they can step into the task of keeping the club going at senior level. I have seen it, and I can't remember any team, bar one, over the last number of years that has got relegated and come straight back up. The only one that springs to mind is Melvin Gaels, Aidan. So if you go down intermediate, it really is. It's a dogfight. It's an absolute dogfight down there. You know, to go back down to intermediate.
Every division, Martin.
This year they went down in 19. Technically came up in 20. So they're back in the senior grade this year. But your point is valid.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so difficult. It's so difficult to get back up to from intermediate to senior there, you know. And look at going back to when I was a player, Aidan, and you, I remember when we played, Aidan, back in the mid 80s, when we first went on to our adult teams in Manor Hamilton. But Manor Hamilton and Allen Gaels were junior clubs. We were contesting the junior championship back then, Aidan. And I suppose we got promoted from junior in 87 and then intermediate in 89 to make our way up as far as senior, and we've been there ever since. So from that perspective, you know, I would hate to be going back down. You know, I think, you know, we'll be leaving no stone unturned, Aidan, to try and remain in senior level.
Well, look, Martin, I totally agree with you. And, you know, it's funny, I was out in Manor Hamilton last night, and, you know, I had a look at the game, and there was a kind of a social event on, but that discussion did come up, and I was in the company of Aidan Rooney and John Connolly and some stalwarts in Manor Hamilton, and that conversation came up about the late 80s and, you know, the progression of the club through that period. But you know something, you know, there's something in growing from that level that brings the club, you know, from one team then to multiple teams and the growth of the club. But I would say Allen Gaels are not in that position, Martin, because you've already done that work, you know, and you really shouldn't have to be redoing that work, is the point. And I know, you know, some team has to be relegated and some team has to, you know, promote. But I would say from Allen Gaels' point of view that the club is too big, from an outside point of view, looking into the club, to say Allen Gaels would be in intermediate football, you know, in Leitrim, because I don't think it's good. And we just discussion off camera as well, I suppose, about the development of football in the county and where we are and all that stuff. Like, we need as many top clubs in the top grade as we possibly can. I'm not degrading any other teams in the championship, but I'm saying the clubs with pedigree need to be up there, you know, for the betterment of Leitrim football.
Yeah, but you know, no team has a God-given right to senior status. You know, there's no such thing as a team being too big to go down. Like in the past number of years, like we've seen Ballinaglera, who were stalwarts in Leitrim for many, many years, 20 titles, the most titles in the county, and they had to go down to intermediate and were down there for a number of years before they got up. Aughnasheelin, a great club, especially through the 80s and early 90s, and that they were the team to beat as well, in Leitrim. They spent a period of time down in intermediate rebuilding before they came back up. My point is that no team has a God-given right to automatically assume that they're going to be there. So if you're not prepared to keep working at it, you won't just get you won't get the rewards out of it. And is the point that I suppose that I'm trying to make ultimately.
Martin, you were on duty, obviously, as we said last night, in Leitrim Gaels as well, with their clash with Melvin Gaels. You've also watched a lot of these teams over the last few years as part of your role on the stream set up from Leitrim GAA. You've been much closer to the action this year, but you've had a chance maybe to have a look at some of the teams around you. Who's impressed you from the other clubs? Who do you think is going to be thereabouts come the end of the season?
Well, you absolutely just can't look past Mohill. I mean, they really are playing awfully well at the minute, and they've got a very strong squad of players now. I mean, when you look through their starting 15 that has gone out the last couple of days, and every team manager is going to be looking for little chinks, as to where they can exploit, a team. And you just take a cursory look at that Mohill team, and we looked at the starting 15 that played against us, obviously after the game, when we had a chance to analyse what happened in that game. You had 10 guys on that starting 15 that have county senior experience. 10 with county senior experience. The other 5 have all experience at county under 20 or under 21 level, including Pádraig Tighe, the goalkeeper, who played county underage for Westmeath. So there are very few chinks to be exploited there at the moment, and that's why Mohill are going to be there or thereabouts, and certainly that shouldn't put off other teams. You would imagine, based on what Carrick and how they performed last year, that they can't be too far away. They've got a very strong number of underage teams coming in behind the senior team that they had last year. They're a young team with lots of energy and enthusiasm. It was Mohill's experience ultimately that really beat them in the county final last year. And then, you have Manor Hamilton haven't gone away. They're, they have lots of players there with loads of pedigree behind them, and that if they can string a couple of victories together, it's amazing what a couple of victories can do for confidence in that. And then you're going to be looking at a couple of teams maybe that have recently come up from intermediate and that, and have been building towards a better future. And the two that I spring to mind will be your own club, Breifne, and Leitrim Gaels and Fianna. And there's no doubting the talent that both those two teams have. Whether they're ready enough to make the step up to senior level this year, to winning a senior championship, I don't know if they're there yet. Certainly what I seen of Leitrim Gaels last night, I thought it was a very measured performance, a very controlled performance by them. First thing I would say, it was clearly obvious that Melvin Gaels were under strength. They certainly missed the power and energy of Killian McGowan out in the middle of the park. It resulted with them in having to have Aidan Rooney out trying to compete and catch ball from kickouts, which he did on a couple of occasions. But like Colin Morton was supreme in the middle of the park. He was fielding ball. His kick passing was excellent. And the foundation was really built on a very strong half-back line. I mean, each member of this half-back line there in Leitrim Gaels, they were all over 6 foot, big, strong men and mobile, which was more important than that. And I think between the 3 guys in the half-back line, they contributed 4 points to the Leitrim Gaels total. So they're not going to be a million miles away. And then you've got Fianna. And I mentioned this earlier about all the underage success that Fianna have had. And that has been built on a number of players that have been able to make the step up to county senior. Now, when you're coming into a situation, I suppose, I can speak from personal experience in that we would have found ourselves in a similar situation back in the early 90s, where we had won a junior championship in 87, an intermediate championship in 89, and we were well beaten in a semi-final by Aughnasheelin in 1990. And in 1991, we went into that year. We had managed to win a league game against Gartletra. And back in the early 90s, you were measured against the big 3 in Leitrim, which were Ballinaglera, Aughnasheelin, and Gartletra. And if you could make inroads into those 3 teams, then you were ultimately going to be seen as a contender in Leitrim at that stage. Because it's fair to say, and I'm sure Aidan will agree with me, back then, it was one of those 3 teams that was going to win the championship every year. You never looked beyond one of those 3 teams. But we came from a situation in Allen Gaels where we had also won a minor championship in 87. And we had a lot of players that had come up together through under 12, under 14, 16 to win that minor championship, to be part of that junior and intermediate championship wins. And we kind of stuck together in that. And we were fortunate enough that we had a very experienced manager in Frank McGowan and a good trainer in Aidan McGowan, that got us fit enough to be able to participate at that level. But Frank McHugh also had the experience of several senior championships with Ballinaglera, and he parted all that experience to us. And, it was enough to get us over the line. Probably, I'd say, if you speak to Ballinaglera players of that era, and I know I've spoken to Barney Breen about this on many occasions, and I said they probably took us a little bit for granted. But we got that little bit of luck maybe in that they took us a little bit for granted, and we were able to take advantage of that. And that's what Fianna have to look at now. Fianna have the quality of players there. And if they're taken for granted at any stage in the championship, they have to be able to grab that opportunity with both hands. And that's the task facing Fianna and also Leitrim Gaels. But I would say Fianna, they're probably a year ahead of Leitrim Gaels in the development, but I do expect both those teams to be knocking around the last 4 in the championship this year.
Absolutely. Aidan, anything else before we wrap up, Martin?
No, I suppose the only question, Martin, about Drumshanbo or Allen Gaels, you're rebuilding the club. You're rebuilding, the kind of ethos and, what has always been the strong. What kind of player base have you got now? What age group are the players you have? Is it young primarily?
It's primarily young players, yeah. It was primarily young players. Like, we had 5 lads came through from last year's minors, and indeed 2 of them at 17 years of age, have made their senior debuts in the championship in both the Mohill and the Aughnasheelin game. But we also have a few experienced heads there, like James Flynn and Alan Wynne, both of whom weren't fit to start against Mohill. They've both come back into the team from the Aughnasheelin game. They bring great experience with them. But then after that, we would have maybe a few guys maybe hovering around the age of about 30, and then we'd have a lot of guys maybe in their mid-20s now. But primarily, we're backboned by a lot of guys between the age of 21 down to 17 at the moment, Aidan. We would have a large number of guys, maybe about of our senior squad, let's just say at the moment, I would say we have 11 guys maybe between the ages of 17 and 21, And I suppose that's what we're trying to build from at the moment, utilising the experience that we have. Obviously, I would like to have a few more of the experienced guys back, Brian and Thomas Mulvey, we've seen Thomas Mulvey playing with the Leitrim seniors in his time, and Brian Mulvey, would be well known among Leitrim club circles about, the quality of player that he is. Like, they would be 2 important cogs in our squad, but we don't have them at the minute. Both those guys are in Canada, and we're unlikely to have them for the rest of the championship. So, from that perspective, that's what we're operating at the minute.
Well, listen, Martin, thanks very much for joining us. It's greatly appreciated. I know you're a busy man. Thanks for bringing us back, reminiscing about going from junior to senior in the mid-80s. I did too, only for me it was from junior infants to senior infants. So you're making me feel young at least. Gents, thanks very much. We'll talk to you, Martin. We'll chat to you, I'm sure, on the sideline of a pitch somewhere along the season.
We certainly
good talking to you, Martin. I'll talk to you soon, Martin.
Absolute gentleman. Thank you so much to Martin for joining us and sharing his opinion on what's going on the fields up and down the county over the next couple of weeks and the last couple of weeks, of course. Let's take a look forward to this weekend's action. And of course, we are back in action as ever on Friday night with some big fixtures. We're going to start with the intermediate grade because they are the 2 games taking place on Friday night, and Kiltubbard and Aughnasheelin, they'll do battle on Friday night in Kiltubbard. It's a local derby. It's the first championship match in Kiltubbard's new premises there in Kiltubbard. A fantastic new facility. Congratulations to all involved in that. I know they've played a couple of league games there, but it's going to be a big night for them. Ballinaglera and Drumahare, another North Leitrim derby, although they're either side of the county. Both those games thrown in at 7 o'clock on Friday night. And then we'll stick with intermediate while we're there. Carrigallen and Drumreilly, another local derby. That's at 7 p.m. on Saturday. while Ballinaglera and Drumcairn will do battle also on Saturday evening. In the Senior Football Championship, where most of the focus will be this weekend, it's the fourth round of games. We have Fianna and Aughnasheelin at 7 p.m. In Fianna, Ballinaglera and Allen Gaels, they'll do battle, as we heard about from Martin, on Saturday night. Again, all these games Saturday. Gortletcher host Leitrim Gaels, while St Mary's Clontarf will make the journey to Kinlaw to see if they can seal their place in the quarterfinals this weekend and pile a little bit more misery on Kinlaw and Melvin Gaels that they have been going through this year. It's their last game. They're virtually guaranteed, as we mentioned earlier in the show, a place in the quarterfinals, but a point against St Mary's would rubber stamp that for them. So they'll be looking to do that if they can at all. They've had some really good battles over the last couple of years at senior level. They met each other in both of the last year's championship, and they've thrown up some really, really intriguing battles. They've knocked each other out over the last 2 years. They won't knock each other out this time around, Aidan, but they like coming up against each other.
Yeah, Melvin Gaels are in a bit of a spot now. The season's kind of turning away on them a little bit, and I know Killy McDonald last weekend is a big loss to them, and they'll need to dig out something against Carrick if they're going to have any chance of progressing in the championship. They're going to have to get a performance, and I think at the minute, Melvin Gaels, James, they're going to want a performance. They're going to want to get a level of performance up. Funny, we're just talking about them here. The Manor Hamilton game. Manor Hamilton won that game comfortably, which is very unusual for a local derby. Well, Glencar Manor and Melvin Gaels for again to do one comfortably, and that's kind of. So Melvin Gaels want to get away from that now this weekend at all, if they can at all, with Carrick coming down and try and get a performance up that will give them, because as you spoke on, it looks like bar a strange series of results, they're going to be in the quarter-final of the championship, and it looks like they're going to be facing Mull on the far side. So they're going to have something ready as regards performance level up at a different level from where they've been the last couple of weeks. Incentive is, and then they have a bit of a break to their quarterfinals, so they're not out the last weekend, so they'll probably have a chance to get something done in that time as regards maybe challenge games outside the county and try and reinvigorate themselves a little bit. But a performance against Carrick is vital for them.
Yeah, any of the games tweak your interest. Of course, your main focus, I suppose, will be rightly so on St Mary's and Sligo at the moment, in the middle of championship action yourself. But you were at Manor's game last week. Would you like to pick a game over the weekend? Do you get to many Leitrim Club games?
Well, as many as I could get to. Just our game was on Friday night this week because of the Sligo Miners involved in the Leinster semi-final. So unfortunately, from now on, we're back into ordinary business as usual, Saturdays and Sundays. So it's very difficult to get out of Sligo between playing matches and recovery sessions and all this kind of stuff that you have to oversee, and that is difficult to get away. But yeah, I enjoyed the game Manor last night. Like Gortletcher, I was looking forward to seeing what they were like. Having come up and having spoken to Niall Woods here a couple of weeks ago on the show, to see where Gortletcher were at from an overall context point of view, and disappointing not to see Jack Heslin on the pitch. I know he's carrying an injury, but it would have been a far more interesting affair if Jack had played. A player of that quality. Gortletcher really, I suppose, what we're saying and all through the show is really, the teams who are struggling cannot afford to be without players. So he was a massive loss to Gortletcher last night. Like, let's not underestimate. Gortletcher were very competitive, and Colin McCran was banging away at full forward as if he had never, as if time was stood still for him. He was still a major threat early on in the game in particular. But it was very interesting to see. A great crowd at Manor Hamilton last night in Bogan. There was a great crowd at the game. The interest is alive and well, and the championship, I suppose, as we discussed earlier on, the Leitrim Championship doesn't really start to hot up till you get to the latter stages of the group stages and the quarterfinals, because there is a great window to get into the quarterfinal right along the whole way, even up until the last game in the group stages. So look at I Gortletcher, Leitrim Gaels, yeah. If I Leitrim Gaels, I'd be careful. I know they're probably well ahead, but at the same time, Gortletcher are going to have to find something. They don't want to go into an Allen Gaels playoff match having not performed to some level in the group stage. And the same can be said for Martin on the far side with Allen Gaels. The Ballinaglera travelling to Ballinaglera to play them. It's a tough ask. When Ballinaglera just starting to gather a head of steam now, and after their first victory last weekend, they're going to want to push on and lay down a marker before they get to the quarterfinal stage. So I'd fear for Allen Gaels in that game.
Yeah, I suppose just to keep everything right, we better just run through the junior championship fixtures for the weekend as well. The junior B and C championships, you can see them down there below us on the screen in terms of who's actually going to be playing. So best luck to the team starting in the junior B and C championships this weekend. In terms of the final bit of news we're going to deal with on the show, and that is just the ladies. And of course, your own club, Glencar Manor, are the reigning senior champions in the county. Now, we want to try and explain this a little bit because it's very confusing. By virtue of the fact that Glencar Manor won the Connacht Championship, intermediate championship, they have been graded as a senior club. Now, no other club in Leitrim is actually technically graded as a senior championship. So it's a little bit confusing. So there was a suggestion that Manor would be in the senior championship on their own with no games to play. Thankfully, the county board have managed to come up with a compromise that keeps Croke Park and the Connacht Council happy, but also gives all the girls in the county football, which is the most important thing, and it gives them meaningful games. So we now have a senior A and a senior B championship. It's all the same set of fixtures. There will be two distinct league tables, one including Glencar Manor, one not including Glencar Manor. And to make it as simple as possible, the 6 teams in the Senior A Championship, the top 2 will contest the county final. If Glencar Manor don't make that, the final doesn't happen. And the actual semi-final will be the Senior A or the Senior B Championship. So there's a semi-final with the first versus fourth, second versus third, and the 2 winners into the final. So Glencar Manor have to finish top 2 essentially for there to be a Senior A final in the county. It's all a little bit convoluted, but it does mean that essentially on paper the same structure happens as last year, except it's a straight final for the top 2 sides, as long as Glencar Manor are there. Funny enough, they won the championship last year. They didn't finish top 2 in the group by virtue of a draw in against St. Joseph's and a defeat to Ballinaglera on the opening day. So you never know. You could have a team representing Leitrim in the Connacht Senior Club Championship this year that didn't even win their club championship. It's all a little bit convoluted, but it does mean, which is the most important thing, as we say, that the clubs will get to play each other, and they will have that little bit of competitive streak that we've seen really building nicely on the women's front in the county. Have I completely confused you, Aidan?
Completely, Breifne. You've lost me at hello.
That's good. All the girls are confused as well. It's fine. But it does make sense on paper, at least. I think as people see it panning out. So the B Championship, effectively, none of the Glencar Manor results count towards that particular competition. So it's 2 different tables, one with the Glencar Manor results, one without the Glencar Manor results. All it really means is if you win all your games, you're going to be the senior champions in Leitrim this year, regardless of which club you're from. And I'm sure we spoke to a couple of the girls over the weekend, and I'm sure they're going to be absolutely itching to get playing. Games they throw in this Sunday morning at 11 a.m, bar one junior game, which throws in at 4. The fixtures, you've seen them here on the screen beneath us if you're watching us on YouTube, but they do happen over the next couple of days. Shauna Heston's, they host St. Joseph's, St. Francis host Mull, while Kiltubbard and Glencar Manor Hamilton, the holders, as we say, they'll do battle in the senior championship, in the intermediate championship. St. Bridget's and Drumkieran, they'll do battle last year's junior champions versus the team relegated from senior, while Kildare Gaels and St. Mary's play the second game. Drumahare with a bye, while Fina and Enough, the 2 first teams in the junior grade, they will play each other, with the 2 second sides, Drumahare making a short journey to Manor to play their second team as well in the junior grade. Now, we caught up with some of the team captains across the clubs at the launch of the championships on Saturday in Drumshanbo, in the home of St. Francis or Allen Gaels, depending on what point you're looking at it. Here's what PJ Ryan, who's secretary of the county board, and some of the captains and representatives of the clubs had to say about their side's chances and their preparations so far. PJ Ryan, Secretary of Leitrim Ladies County Board. It's been an interesting couple of months as we await the championship. We didn't really know what the championship would even look like until earlier in the week. Talk to us maybe about what that structure is, and the A Championship and the B Championship, and why that change has happened.
Okay, Breifne, and thanks for coming today to our launch, our second year in a row. We've had a launch here with the clubs. Well, basically the A and B came about because Manor Hamilton won a senior intermediate Connacht title, which actually meant they were the only senior club in Leitrim. So to facilitate, Manor Hamilton and give them some football, we came up with an A and a B championship, which under the LGFA rules, we could do that within the county.
It does mean, I suppose, on the face of it, that there's very little change to the senior championship. There will be no semi-finals in the A senior championship
That's
this
correct.
year.
Yeah.
A straight final with the top two sides.
Yeah.
And of course then you've got the B championship for the non-Glencar Manor teams.
Yeah.
So what would have, had they been forced out, was a potential option here for the county board to take. It's what that championship would have looked like anyway. So the teams all play each other. Manor's games count in the A and they're excluded in the B.
That's correct, yeah. And I suppose, look, a lot of the clubs felt too, as they voted on this at a county board meeting, that it was important to give Manorhampton games and make the championship as competitive as could be and enjoyable for people to come and watch games like it was last year. So overall, I think it was a good positive outcome for football in Leitrim, which we only have 6 clubs in Leitrim that were senior, so we have to try and maintain competitive football within the county.
Well, some would argue that they're not even senior, they're only intermediate.
Well,
that's the whole situation
yeah.
we found ourselves in. At the same time, it means games for everybody this summer, which is only good news. And we said this summer, it's almost September.
It is,
we're back to school almost as soon as the games get thrown in. Has it been frustrating, although it's been as a result of the success of the county team? So I suppose it's a little bit of a positive news story, really, to be starting so late.
I haven't got any too much negative feedback from clubs about it. I don't know that fully all the clubs understand, that we can't begin until the senior team finishes, which and this year they got to a quarter final of an All-Ireland, which was a success going on from last year. We had the spring league went on a bit later, but now clubs are ready to go and looking forward to starting football next on the 29th of September. Of course, they have the break of 29th of August.
You talked about the spring league.
Yeah.
How much of an addition has that been to the whole landscape here in ladies football, because it's given girls games that traditionally mightn't have seen much game time, and they've been getting full games and good appearances under their belts in the last few weeks?
Yeah, I think, look, definitely it was a great addition to a lot of clubs, that they got to play football when we mightn't have had any games on at all, and as well as that, look, clubs had to play without their county players, so that gave other girls at their clubs football. I think football for the whole team rather than just maybe they're starting 15 that would play game on game every week. So yeah, I think the spring league was definitely, like last year, I think we only one game got played and then it got shelved because of the COVID, so it was good to get it finished out, and it was a good addition, and probably obviously something we're going to hold on to in the future if the LGFA continue with this split season that we're going to have.
Yeah, in terms of, I suppose, where we are today, we're here in Drumshanbo at the launch of the championships, the club championships here in the county. Some real excitement last year. Glencar Manor winning their first title. Can we see them repeat that feat? Will we see a new name on the title? Can St. Joseph's come back and win again? Or how do you think it's going to play out? Or do you really, from your point of view, does it really matter? It's just about getting the games and seeing how each team evolves through the season?
I think it's about seeing how each team evolves through the season. Like I say, there was a lot of, like I saw some of the St. Joseph's players last year. They came up to a junior game that their team was playing, and you could really see the hurt on their on their faces, and that I'm sure they'll be pushing to come back. And good to have a new team up there in Mohill this year. I'm sure they don't want to be up there just come straight back down. But the other divisions equally is interesting. We have Drumkieran up for the first time in a while in intermediate. They're going to want to not go back down either. Now the junior, we have 4 teams as junior. You'd always like to have more. You'd like to have 6 in the junior to make it competitive. But look, Manorhampton are going to be as competitive as they were last year. Fianna, they're going to want to be in a final again, and enough. And also we have Drumahare this year. They're putting in a second team into the junior, which is going to be good.
Excellent.
So lots of games to look forward to.
Excellent, lots of games to keep all appetites whetted over the next few weeks and months. PJ, congratulations on a successful launch of the championships, and the best of luck for the season.
Thank you very much, Breifne. Thank you.
Melissa Hewitt, another year coming into this season as champions. Nice position to be in.
Oh, it is, yeah, but we're just trying to focus on this year and not dwelling on last year, so new year.
Now, of course, there has been a whole load of ifs, buts and maybes coming into this year's campaign because of your Connacht Championship success. There was talk that you wouldn't be able to take part in the Championship this year. That's all been resolved, thankfully, in the boardroom, and you're looking forward to just getting out and playing games against the 5 teams at senior level in the county with you. What's been the mood in the camp over the last few weeks when that little bit of uncertainty was happening?
Well, I suppose it's been really frustrating, kind of not knowing where you stand, but thankfully we pulled together as a team and we just kept taking over and just preparing for what might or might not happen. So we're just kind of going to put that behind us now and just focus on the future, and thankfully we've all stuck together and kept going.
Of course, your team renowned for having some fantastic young players coming through. You're maybe one of the slightly older ones, apologies. But there's a very nice blend of youth and experience in that squad. Talk to us about, I suppose, what you would have taken from last year's championship win and what that brings when you come into this championship campaign as champions, because you've never had that experience before.
No, we haven't, I suppose, that before, but I suppose it's given us confidence. Like, we always kind of had a bit of doubt and that behind us, but we have a new confidence now, and the younger players are, I suppose, having them at training pushes everybody on, and you know, competition for positions as well, and you know, training is nearly as hard as any game, you know, so I suppose with both the experienced players and the youth, we kind of push each other on.
In terms of the team this year versus what we saw on the field last year, any major changes? Are we looking at more or less the same personnel?
Yeah, more or less the same. I suppose Cammie's not with us this year for a while, but Michelle is just equally as capable to do the job, so more or less the same team.
Okay, well listen, in terms of the championship ahead, the very best of luck. Better explain to listeners and viewers as well that you can't win the Senior B championship because of this compromise that's been reached. So top two teams, that's what you're aiming for, to get to a county Senior A final and repeat last year's championship success.
That's it, yeah, it's very, very confusing, but I suppose we just try to take every game as it comes and hopefully come out on top and go from there.
Well listen, best of luck this year in the championship.
Thank you.
Katie Degnan, captain of Ballinaglera and Aughnasheelin, beaten finalist last year. Sorry to bring that up, but this year obviously going into the championship with a new vigour. Two competitions to play for this year, the A and the B competition. What's the mood like in the Ballinaglera camp?
Yeah, the mood is good. I mean, from last year we've learned a lot. Obviously, from the final we were devastated, but you know, we made club history that was great, but now we're looking to move on. The mood in the camp is really good this year. We have a lot of new girls as well, younger girls coming up that have actually been quite dominant this year so far on the pitch, so it's great to see that we have, you know, quality in numbers as well, so it's been fantastic.
In terms of the Spring League, I know I was at one or two of your games, and there was huge numbers out for the club despite being missing the couple of girls that were away with the county. Who's caught your attention maybe of these youngsters coming through? Who can we keep an eye out for? Or is it fair to ask you to put names?
Definitely two young ones that have really come on in the last year, I suppose, is Molly Murphy and Emma Honeyman. They're runners and they can read the game really well. They have a great impact on both the back line and pressing forward, so they'll be one to watch, definitely.
In terms of the championship, obviously slightly new structure this year because the issues with Glencar Manor. We're not going to get into that here and now, but in terms of the mindset of the players in your group, does that change anything? Have you spoken about the B championship structure, or how does that work?
No, well, we have spoken just as a group, you know, management and team, but other than that, nothing else has really come to pass. I mean, we've one job to do, and that's it. Whether it's Senior A or Senior B, we still have to go out and play matches, so there's no real talk or confusion. We just need to get a job done, that's all.
Obviously last year ended at the final stage. Probably a little bit surprised maybe even to everyone outside the camp that you got there, but you did on merit. Some fine performances early on in the championship particularly. What's the mindset this year? Are you looking to move out and cause a surprise in the first weekend like you did last year?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was fantastic to get to the final last year, and we done so well. We'd be really hoping to do the same again and push on. But I suppose we learned a lot from it. We're a different team now this year. We've a little bit more experience, and as I said, the quality of the squad as well, that's with the subs and young people coming in, has been excellent. So we're different, but we'll definitely try our best.
Your boys team, not to mention the war, but your boys team have been struggling a little bit this championship.
Yeah.
Obviously we're recording this before their game this weekend. Do you take any notice in what's happening in other aspects of the club in terms of teams that are winning or losing, or is it just very single focused on?
Not really. Obviously we go out and we always support the men's team, and we always hope for the best with them, but no, mentality is always within our own camp, and we kind of keep it like that. And if the boys are going well, I suppose it does give the club a good uplift, and I suppose subconsciously that might give us a bit of an uplift as well, but no, we're very much in our own camp as well.
Excellent. Listen, the very best of luck to you and your
Thank
teammates
you.
as you prepare for another championship season and going in this time maybe as a title challengers that might not have been a tag that you've had previous to championships before. So,
No.
So well done.
Thank you. Thanks a million.
Elaine McGowan, another year, another championship. You're not unfamiliar to the final stage of the championships. Bit of a blip last year, not winning after 3 on the bounce. What's the mood like in the camp at the moment?
Everyone's looking forward to getting back out and playing competitive games. It was great to have the Spring League there to get games under our belts, and now great to have the county girls back and looking forward to performing in the championship. Hopefully that's the biggest disappointment, I suppose, was performance last year. So looking forward to getting back out.
You mentioned the league final, I suppose, not really a happy hunting ground recently here for you in Shambo.
Yeah.
What was the mood like after that game in terms of, I suppose, the mindset and where you were coming into the championship?
I suppose we were actually really happy. We've a lot of county girls and a lot of young girls got football playing that Spring League. We weren't expecting to get to the final in it at all, so we were very happy, and just great to get the game and build younger girls up for going into championship then.
Have you unearthed any gems? I know there's 1 or 2 little tricky corner forwards I spotted at games over the earlier games in the competition that looked impressive, looked like they could have a future with the club.
Oh, definitely. There's great young girls coming up there, so it's brilliant to see at all levels. There's 1 or 2. If we can grab 1 or 2 every year, it's great. There's a few crackers. We'll hopefully see it down the line anyway.
In terms of, I suppose, the expectations going into this year's championship, obviously 3 wins out of 4 in the last few years. Can you get back to the top of the summit again? Is that the goal going into this year's championship?
We're going to take it game by game, I guess, and see how we get on. But that's where everyone wants to be. But there's huge competition there, so nothing's going to be easy in the championship. Just Ballinaglera next weekend. That's what we're looking at now.
Everyone's giving me that stock game by game. In terms of the overall championship, I suppose, well done on a really impressive Spring League campaign for your club girls, not missing the county players.
Mm-hmm.
I know bringing back in some of those players. I know there's a few injuries in the camp as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the very best luck to you this season, and best luck in the championship.
Thank you very much.
Stephanie Reynolds, another year, another championship, just a week to throw in for St. Francis. What's the excitement like in the camp?
We're all gearing up to it. I suppose we had our spirits lifted when we won the league final, and then we were brought down to earth again and to refocus again for the championship. So I suppose we have our different goals now in sight, and we're just happy to accomplish the goal we set out at the start of the year so far, and we just have other goals to achieve, and our mind has refocused, and I suppose the backroom team has got us training well, and I think we're going to well together as a team.
Let's talk about that league final success, because I think it's a pretty big day for the club and a pretty big statement of maybe where you are. Your first trophy at senior level in the club, in the county as well, so a big day for everybody involved. What was it like on the day here at home to play St. Joseph's and to come out with that trophy at the end of the day?
Yeah, of course, it's a major achievement, our first senior title as a team, so we definitely were up for it. The game was tough on the day, no doubt. We were brought to the net at the end, the goal between us. So in the end, I think our work rate and the spirits we had from the crowd that got behind us and the management that riled us up for the day really pushed us over the line. So that experience that brought us from the start of the year to now.
After a year's gap, we're back with familiar-ish face in the dugout. It wasn't with you last year, but had brought the club up to senior level over the years. Paul Martin, of course, back in the manager's seat. What difference has he made coming back into that role?
Of course, yeah. To see a familiar face back again, it's great, and to get silverware, it's just an extra bonus. Paul has known the girls and knows the girls very well, so he's able to bring us on in ways that I suppose out of our comfort zones. So he is definitely, as well as Gareth and they're the backroom team that bring us on, and they fully believe in us to go further, and I suppose to have that belief in ourselves is a major thing to bring us to championship and to set out our goals and achieve them.
Yeah, you've talked about goals a lot. What can you tell us about maybe what those goals might be? What constitutes a successful championship campaign for St. Francis?
I suppose we're going to take one game at a time. A game of inches, I suppose, to get over every line. So our goals are not too far down the line, because we just have to. Mohol is our first
where we take it game by game. Well, Stephanie, listen, congratulations on that league win and the first senior title for the club. The very best of luck to you and to your teammates this season.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Charlene Tyrrell, first year back in the senior grade with Mull after last year's intermediate championship success. What's life like in Mull colours at the moment?
Good. I just got back to club training myself last week there because we finished up with the county. So yeah, training's going well and the girls are working hard. So it's good to be back with the club because last year we had the no county football until club was over, so it's different momentum to last year, but no, it's good to be back with club and preparing for senior championship.
Some really big victories this year for you in that spring league. I suppose it's very hard to read much into it because of the fact that a lot of teams without their senior players involved with county teams, but does it give you hope going into the championship this year that you can make an impression at senior level?
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of big players there, and throughout the spring league I don't think they ever had a full team outside the county girls, so it's promising. We've lots of young girls coming up, minor girls and under 16s that fill out the panel when there's 5 of us on the county team, so that's a big loss in itself to any team really, having 5 starting players missing. So the girls did really well in the league and I think did themselves proud, and the Dromahair have no county players and they're going strong, coming down from senior last year, and I'd say they're all firing to win intermediate out, so they had a good setup there. So but the girls I think did really well against them, and it looks good for us now getting ready for a championship next weekend.
Yeah, in terms of that championship, I suppose, what's the expectation or the hope for Mull this year?
I think when you go up from intermediate, the hope is to stay up. I think that's the hardest part in your first year being promoted to senior football, is staying up there. And if we get staying up in senior, then build on and aim to win the senior championship really.
Rightly or wrongly, a lot of I suppose focus is on whether Dervla Byrne's available for you or not. She's been a taliswoman for you over the last few seasons, and she's always likely to come in with a fairly decent score, not unlike her brother Keith, who's cutting it up in the men's championship at the moment. How important is it to have players of that quality available to you? Will she be available to you for the championship? I know she's got soccer commitments.
Completely I'm unsure. I don't know Dervla's availability at all, and she is a big loss when we don't have her. But then we have other players that can, score, maybe not as much as Dervla or have Dervla's confidence, but when she's not there, it helps, I think, nearly build them girls' confidence up because they don't have to rely on her as much. But I don't know, I do hope we have her for all the championship, but look, we just have to play the games as they come along.
Of course, they come along thick and fast now over the next few weeks. Have the club set any goals in terms of what success looks like for Mull this season? Is there any talk of a title challenge? Can you win a championship, or is survival? I know you talked about survival, but is that just maybe playing the game a little bit?
Yeah, look, everyone wants to win. Our goal last year was to get up to senior, and we're there now, and we know how hard we have to work. Like the talent that's in Leitrim football and in the senior grade is incredible. Look at Manor winning out the kind of clubs. That'll be, that's a goal for every senior team. So yeah, stay up and get as far in the competition as we can. It'd be lovely to be, appearing in a senior final this year. It'd be lovely, I said.
We'll be playing this back to you later in the season. Charlene Tyrrell, very best luck to you and your teammates for the season ahead.
Thanks a million.
Shaylin Ward, it's been an exciting couple of weeks for you personally, captain of the Leitrim team that won the Minor B Championship. You're here in your club, guys, obviously as part of the Allen Gaels side in this year's Intermediate Championship. How have you been doing? How's life been for the last couple of weeks?
It's been good, as you can see. Good to win the minors. Big boost for the girls that were involved for the club as well. Training's been going good as well for club, so hopefully we'll get there.
Of course, you've been involved with the Leitrim senior side as well yourself, and it's been an exciting season for you. What do you bring from that back to Allen Gaels, maybe to kind of lift yourself and lift the girls around you?
Probably just the positivity, like the mental attitude. You seen, like, nobody really thought like Leitrim ladies were going anywhere, and we showed up, everyone got into the quarter final, and like that intensity that I learned from training with the county and everyone, bring that into training, hopefully it'll help lift up the girls.
this year, obviously, Keeldra, first time in the Intermediate Championship last year, acquitted yourself very well. Some really, really strong performances, some good results as well. What's the hope for this year?
Well, the hope everyone has is to get into the final and promotion, I guess. I don't know how we'll go this year, but hopefully we'll get there. Like, just the main thing is keep up. Nobody wants to go back down into the junior championship because of, as you say, it's a lot of second teams and the real competition is up in intermediate and senior.
In terms of, I suppose, the goals for this year, what goals have the club set in terms of where you want to achieve? What would constitute a successful season? Obviously, you talked about staying up, semi-finals, potential finals. Is that a realistic goal for the club?
I don't know, like, we hope it is. Like, we believe we can get there if we can. Obviously staying up, and like, I suppose just hoping that we'll get there.
In terms of the squad, any new faces this year? I know you're quite young, you're still minor. There's plenty of girls your age involved with Keeldra. I was at one or two of your games, and it's a very young team.
Yeah.
What names might we not be familiar with from supporters looking in that might make an impact this season?
I suppose we've the likes of Lorraine Reynolds back. She was in there last year. And then this team's pretty much the same as last year. I suppose all the girls are getting older. Like, as you say, like, we're coming out of minor, and hopefully that'll stand to us. Like,
you say that like it's a bad thing. They're getting older. You're still only minor. It's grand. You're not at the stage yet where you need to worry about things like that. In terms of this year, obviously, Intermediate Championship starts in the coming days, really. And what's the mood like going into it? Are you confident? Can you cause a couple of upsets potentially? Because I think there would be upsets, to be fair, based on last year's performances.
Hopefully we can. We're confident enough, just people getting over their few injuries, and hopefully everyone will be back to full strength, that we can make some of them upsets happen. In your own outlook, you're obviously one of the heavy scorers for Keeldra over the last few years. Any personal targets? Any personal goals? No, not really. Just do my best in every game that I can, and like push the girls on. I feel like sometimes we need to just shout more to each other, so hopefully I can take that role and push people on. Excellent. Well, listen, the very best of luck to you and your teammates in this year's champ. Thank you. Rachel Smith, FINA Ladies captain this year. It's been a challenging year for you. I know there's been issues with numbers and stuff like that, but finalists last year, you do have a little bit of quality at this level when it comes to the crunch. Can you go further than the final last year?
Well, hopefully we can get to the final this year and just get out of junior. I think that's our main aim, is just to get out of junior and up into intermediate. I know we're a lot better than a junior team. We have been struggling for numbers at the start of the year, and it was quite tough, but we're kind of getting back on track, and we've numbers out, and we're hoping to just get out of junior, I suppose. Talk to us about the team, because obviously a bit of change from last year in terms of numbers particularly. So who can we expect to see maybe that featured in the final last year, who maybe might not be with us this season? So who's not with us this season? We had a free taker last year, Ciara McLaughlin. She's not with us this year. She's doing a Masters, so she's a big loss to us in the forward line. Ciara O'Neill is also a big loss to us. She's not coming back for the championship. She was playing out in New York this summer, so she kind of held centre field there for us. So we're missing a few, but everyone else is still kind of there. We're trying to do our best. Slightly smaller championship this year, 4 teams rather than 6. A couple of the second teams maybe struggling just to field teams, and obviously the winners of last year's final promoted from Kieran, not in that position this year. Does that make any difference to the mindset coming into the championship? Not really. I suppose, as I said, our aim is to just get out of junior, and just we play whoever we have to play. I suppose Manor Hamilton were a challenge last year for us, and I'm sure it'll be another challenge again this year, but 3 games, hopefully the best out of 3. Well, listen, the very best luck to you and your teammates this season. Thank you very much. Perfect.
Aidan, that's it. A fine summer of football. We're all up and running. Ladies, the last ones to get going because of their fantastic run to the quarterfinals of the Intermediate Championship. Just a reminder, if you haven't got it yet, it's available at all good bookshops at all outlets around the county. There's a list on the Leitrim GAA website and on both Leitrim Daily and finalwhistle.ie. We would really appreciate if you like what we do here on the show, if you like our coverage, please support what we're doing. This is the best way to support us. Go out and buy a copy of the book, and we would love you to get your hands on one of them. And I think you're going to enjoy it. If you're into Leitrim football, you're going to love what's in it. It's a really, really lovely piece of, I suppose, history. We say that ourselves, we put it together. And thank you to everyone who was part of that, people in the clubs and the team here within our side as well. To Philip, Con, Daniel, and to David for all their help in putting that together. Aidan, well done. I know it's 2 games down for you in Sligo, 1 win, 1 defeat. You need 2 more wins from the other 2 games. Feeling the pressure?
Not really. There's no pressure. pressures for tires. No, like we're fine. We had a poor day out the first day out, and we had a decent day out last Friday night. So yeah, the champion's fine here. It's very competitive, as I said. You know, with only 2 teams qualifying from the group, there's no room for error. We've had an error already, so we need to make up that loss now. And sure, if we do, we do. If we don't, we don't. You know, we're progressing well enough. Few injuries, and sure, normal procedure. And on your book, Breifne, I have to say, I'll be honest to the watching public, I haven't read it yet. So that we know we're not in cahoots. I will have my copy by the next time I'm on the show. So I give my verdict at that time.
That's fair enough. The only good thing I'd say is taking inspiration from the Leitrim champions of last year. Both of them lost on the opening day of the season. So hopefully that augurs well for you and for your St. Mary's team in Sligo this year. The very best of luck. Thanks for joining me as always. And we'll chat in a few weeks.
Thanks, Breifne.